The first industrial revolution originated from the agricultural revolution in Britain, when large landowners improved their farming methods. They cultivated their lands with the help of crop rotation, they bought up the land of village farmers and enclosed them with fences or hedges. Small farmers became tenant farmers, who were forced to move to the cities so as to find jobs. Due to this fact, the workforce was centralized in the cities, urbanization became an ordinary phenomenon, and the population of England rocketed rapidly. The first industrial revolution started in England and took from the end of the 18th until the mid of the 19th century. Due to the island country's extensive natural resources, all necessary resources were available, like water power, coal to fuel the new machines, iron ore to construct machines, tools, buildings, and rivers with harbors for transportation. Furthermore, Britain had an expanding economy to support industrialization. Business people invested in the manufacture of new inventions. Britain's highly developed banking system also contributed to the country's industrialization. Bank loans were available and the demand for goods increased. During the industrial transformation, the light industry was the first to be transformed. In the textile industry, clothes merchants wanted to speed up the production with the help of new inventions such as flying shuttle, the spinning mule, or the spinning jenny, that were set up in large buildings called factories. The improvements in transportation started in 1765 when James Watt invented the steam engine. Other important machines were Robert Fulton's steamboat from 1807 and Stephenson's railroad locomotive that contributed to a quicker and more efficient way of transportation. The improvement of the network of canals and the macadam roads helped transportation so as to broaden its horizons. As far as heavy industry is concerned, mining boosted during the first industrial revolution. Large amounts of coal and iron ore were mined that contributed to the improvement of siderurgy. The second industrial revolution was more widespread than the previous one, and it used to be based on monopole capitalism. It took from the end of the 19th until the beginning of the 20th century, and besides England, Europe and America also played an important role in it. The engine of the development was quarrelly the heavy industry, in which the two most important inventions were the electricity and the internal combustion engine that made automobile possible. One of the most significant inventors was Thomas Edison, who had a special research laboratory in which more than 1,000 inventions were patented, for instance the light bulb or the phonograph. The telephone is Alexander Graham Bell's invention, while the radio is Marconi's one. During the second industrial revolution, an American mechanic named Henry Ford decided to make cars that were affordable for most people, therefore he used standardized interchangeable parts and an assembly line that made production quicker. His machine was known as Model T Ford. In 1903, the Wright brothers revolutionized the aircraft industry by inventing a gasoline-powered flying machine. Furthermore, chemical industry started to prosper, and plumbing and sewer systems were set up so as to improve public health. The consequences of both industrial revolutions were immensely significant. As far as social consequences are concerned, the bourgeoisie class, whose members lived in the suburbs, became stronger and more influential. However, workers were still forced to work 14 or even 16 hours per day. They had no health insurance and no holiday. Furthermore, their working conditions were pretty harsh, and they lived in dirty slums where epidemics were widespread. Factory owners wanted to increase production, therefore they wanted to keep their machines running as many hours as possible. However, it became more and more dangerous because machines injured the workers. In addition, many women and children were employed in factories and even in the mining industry just because they were the cheapest source of labor. The industrial transformation formed four new layers in Great Britain's society. The first one was the growing middle class, whose members were factory owners, shippers, business people, and the wealthy farmers. The second one was the upper middle class that consisted of government employees, doctors, lawyers, and managers. The third one was the lower middle class that included factory overseers and skilled workers. Finally, the fourth one was the so-called working class. As far as the positive effects of the Industrial Revolution are concerned, many new jobs were created, it fostered technological progress and invention, it increased the production of goods and raised the standard of living. Furthermore, diets, better housing, and mass-produced clothing were available as well. Laborers joined together so as to form labor unions, with the help of which they achieved higher wages, shorter working hours, and better conditions.